Dear students, in this subject, elements of mechanical engineering in the module 5, we are now discussing about the milling machines and milling processes. In the previous videos, we have seen about what is a milling machine and what are the working principle of up milling, down milling, and what are the types of milling machines. If there is a horizontal milling machine and vertical milling machine, how it is being classified based on the rotation of the milling cutters, right? And now we are going to discuss about the milling process. What is a milling machine we have seen, and now what are the milling process over there. So milling machines normally used for making the components of a three-dimensional objects, for making the surface flatness of the surface, a conical shape in the shape, or any profiles cut out we can make it, and the side surfaces we can make grooved, we can make it, all the different types of operations we can do it. Now let me see what are the operations, what are the names of the operations, or how it will be functioning, like that we are going to see. So in this, these are all the above mentioned processor, and plain milling, end milling, slot angle milling, form milling. These are all the things which are going for used for the making different profiles in the workpieces. So here, let me see one by one. The first one is the plain milling. Plain milling, it says that machining process of the flat surfaces of the workpiece. So machining the flat surface, how we are going to machine the workpiece having a flat surface, or we want, because raw materials will be not normally will not having the shape, perfect shape. So irregular surfaces will be there. So the irregular surfaces can be adjusted or can be removed with the help of these milling cutters, so that we can make a smooth surface here. So this plain milling will be used for making flat surfaces of the workpiece. And now in this case, the milling cutter is rotating parallel to the surface which is to be milled. This is what how the plain milling cutter will be useful. You can see the cutter which is in the arbor, that is a milling arbor, where the horizontal milling arbor is there, and slab milling cutter, we call it as a slab milling cutter or plain milling cutter, both are same. So a slab milling cutter will be used for the making the flat surface in the workpiece which is held in the work table. And another we can see is a face milling. Face milling is the one where we can make the surface of the flat surface that is on the right angle to the axis of rotating cutter. Now we can have the cutter the spindle is vertical spindle and it has the rotating cutter, and now we can make the face, the flat surface of the object with the help of the perpendicular axis. The work, when the cutter is rotating perpendicular to the surface of the workpiece, we are having the operation we called as face milling. We can create a flat surface on the face of the workpiece. And another operation what we can do is end milling cutter. By using end milling cutter, we can make the process like packets. We can make packets of slots and keyways in different products. So that products, we can make a holes or cutways or a longitudinal cuts, keys. These are things we can perform with the help of rotating milling cutter, which we called as an end milling cutter. A vertical milling cutter which has teeth on entire circumferences, and it will be rotated, and the workpiece can be moved to and fro in this tool when it is rotating, so that it can create a groove or slots, whatever it is. We can make it by using end mill cutter. And some other milling cutters also used in mill cutter is rotating in the vertical manner. And the slot milling cutters, these are all the cutters which are used a multi-point cutter which is held in a horizontal milling arbor. When the horizontal milling arbor is rotating, the slot milling cutter is also rotating. And when we are keeping the workpiece, bringing the workpiece near to the slot milling, we can move upward, downward, or longitudinal movements. This slot milling cutter, when it have a contact with the workpiece, it will remove the unwanted material. That what we can make different types of slots in case in the three-dimensional objects. So it may be a rectangular, it may be a T slots or dovetail slots, like this. Some different kinds of material we can do it. And moreover, we can have one more operation milling cutter we called as angular milling cutter. This angular milling cutter is having the shape of the what we want to machine. So the angular milling cutter is having a V or U shape, most probably V shape, but that's form milling cutter will have a conical shapes and all. Later we will see that one. So the dovetail cutter or the angle milling cutters will be used for making conical shapes or V grooves in our products. Okay, so it will be used for the angular surfaces, creation of angular surfaces in your workpieces. The surface of a slot neither parallel nor perpendicular to the milling cutter. Okay, so this is called the angular. And another one is form milling cutter. That's a form, the name itself it says we want to make a different forms in the workpiece. It may be a U form, that's a concave form, or convex form, different forms what we can make, we want to make in the workpiece. The cutter is itself we can prepare in the forms. So the cutter which is held in the arbor, which is rotating arbor, and it is rotating the one when workpiece is bringing near to the cutter, the same shape is going to be formed in the workpiece by a removal of the material on the workpiece. So this is what we call as a form milling cutter. Different forms can be held, that's different shapes, like exactly what we want in the workpiece, that can be contoured as a tool, and that cutting tools can be used in the form milling cutters. As a form milling cutters we can see different types of form milling cutters which are used for the production of components like convex shape or concave shape products, or workpiece which is having a round edge like this. The shape of the cutters will be helpful, so we call it as form type cutters, form millings. And we can see one more thing is straddle milling and gang milling operations. So the straddle milling is where we can make two different cutters and in different spaces. A spacer is used in between two cutters, and simultaneously some process parallelly vertical surfaces if you want to machine, that time we can use for this straddle milling cutter. In a workpiece, both the sides, both the edges are to be machined. It can be machined by using a vertical, that is a milling cutters in spacer. So this space is used for the keeping the cutters in distance, so that it will be used for this. And it may be used for milling the kicks against like shapes. And we can see this is the real model of the straddle milling cutter. You can see two different multi-point cutters with the help of a spacer in between these two cutters will be used for removal of the materials parallelly at a time in a workpiece. Both the ends can be prepared, machined at the same time. And one more operation, what we can call it as a gang milling operation. The gang milling operation which is applied for your operation where two or three operations can be done in a similar time, in a, together, working together in an when arbor is rotating. So the milling cutters are attached continuously, two or three different milling cutters or combined together, and they are kept in the rotating arbor. And when the workpiece is moved towards to the workpiece, or in relation to the cutter, the raw material is getting removed, and we can unwanted materials from the raw materials removed, and we can make a different type of products at the same time. Similar uh, one rotation we are doing several operations in this by using the gang milling cutters. So we can see this the model, the working model of this, or we can see the example how it will be in a horizontal harbor. Two or three cutting tools, we can see a herringbone teeth or milling cutter, helical milling cutter, and another two cutters in a single support, single horizontal harbor it will be used, right? So these are all the main operations which are all in the milling machines. So we have seen milling machine operations as well as lathe machine operations. Next we are going to see about the advanced manufacturing systems, which are all that is NCNC.